Hello, all. We are in the deep trenches now of classes, and we looked at inheritance and polymorphism already. And now we're going to take a look at aggregation and composition. And this is going to be a little bit different way of thinking. So before we had the animal, mammal, man kind of piece where they kind of drew parts and kind of created man from an inheriting factor or deriving basic information down into that human being or a dog for that matter. Now we're going to kind of think of building up. So composition, I always think in best terms as a house. A house is made of succinct rooms. And those rooms tend not to exist on their own. So in other words, you don't get a realtor to go look at a bedroom. You know, there's not like a bedroom out there that just exists. The house has to be made with a bedroom, hopefully a kitchen, hopefully maybe another bedroom, and hopefully a bathroom, dining room, whatever. So it's a built-up bunch of pieces. Now, thinking about class theory, then every one of those pieces is a class, and then we can have kind of a grouping class that holds all of them together, and that's composition. So all the pieces are made to fit the larger class, and they're expected of it. You know, so in other words, you can't put like a sail on a house, or you know, or a you can't put a T-shirt on it or something like that. They have that intricate linked pieces to each other. A house is made of rooms. Rooms are really only meant for this house. Aggregation is one of my more favorite ways of doing things, but it can be extremely messy because aggregation takes the idea of composition and lets it go for a free-for-all. It's like going to a buffet. You can build your plate no matter what's on with whatever class that's out there and attach it up to it. They do not have to have a relationship back and forth. And this works great with stuff like video games and things of this nature where two pieces may not necessarily fit. So in other words, with the bedroom and the house, those kind of mean that if one exists, the other exists, right? It's hard to kind of make a house without bedrooms. It's kind of hard to make a bedroom without putting it in a house, or you know, some type of living dwelling. You know, let's think about it in terms of a game. I have let's go back to like an old-fashioned RPG. I have a cleric who can heal, right? But then a paladin can heal as well. And maybe another type of unit can grab that piece. So we can take that healer class and just attach it and give it specific values to those three types. Well, I guess we'll call unit the undeclared one, the cleric, and the paladin. But this can be used in lots of other different ways as well. Because if you think about it, things out there don't necessarily have this implicit dependency on them. So in other words, you can use steel for a car door, you can use steel to build a house, you can have steel to build sunglasses. Those pieces are all different, and you can go and aggregate these puzzle pieces and put them together to make your perfect puzzle. And so that's what I like about it. Now the problem is when you have that much freedom, you can really screw things up and have all these extra pieces. They can damage your ability to control your memory, as they can get a little out of hand. Composition is kind of the preferred way, and possibly the best way out of you know, all these we've talked about so far, into kind of making these kind of complete, very streamlined objects. With that being said, I'm going to show you how to do an aggregation, because once you know how to do an aggregation, you know how to do a composition, because the composition is just the same thing, but with these dependent features or dependent classes. And here we go. This is probably as advanced as I'm going to get it for these types of models without building it up in in a former video. So let's take a look at everything here. I have, as you can see here, a picture box where I'm going to display a picture, so you'll get to learn a little bit about pictures, more about pictures today. We have our good old-fashioned list box here. We have our good old-fashioned button. If you notice, this is attribute lists. I guess I should name those out. Prot. Feel free to pause at any time and write these things down. Create but. And then I have a radio button. And as you can see, there's a little line around it. This is a grouping mechanism. If you don't remember the radio buttons, I suggest go back and look at that video. But the key here is if you just put radio buttons on a form, it's fine, it'll work okay. But if you put another set of radio buttons up to do a different task, then you're in trouble, because it'll try to create it as one gigantic radio button, even though you have maybe even two different parts of the form. So what you do is you put a group box around them, and now these three are going to be independent of anything that's outside of this group box if we make another set of radio buttons. Okay, so there we go. This group box is called character box, followed by assassin rad, sniper rad, and tank rad. And as you might have guessed, we're going to make these guys, using that kind of game mentality to do so. So I'm going to go ahead and do an assassin. I think I saw a tank. And then I saw a sniper. And for those of you who don't play games, these are specific roles that people play. A tank is actually not a real tank. This is going to be someone who can absorb a lot of damage, but might not be able to give a lot of damage out. Whereas an assassin is going to use a little more stealth, and sniper is going to use more distance. So if you think about it, they all can kind of hurt you, right? So there's their common thread. So we might want to make a bunch of classes for these, but we might want to also swap these classes out. So I brought all three of these out. So as I click on each one of these, and actually let's go to the create button first, just to understand the underlying theory, or I guess the underlying control of this. And as you can see, hopefully it's not too long, and it isn't. Attribute list. So if we go back to the box, we had an attribute list box, right? So that is being cleared right here. Variables.list, as you can see, on the right is actually, double-clicking, its own class. And we're using a public static list attributes new list string. Wow. So it just holds a list, and static means that you cannot make multiple instances of it, and it has some other benefits as well. So let's go back to reading this. If sniper checked, so it's checking each radio button and then creating a class for it. And as you can see, it's just an aggregation.sniper and aggregation.assassin. So let's go into any one of these, because as you can see, they pretty much take the same form at this point. Assassin doesn't have anything in it. So all it does is create the assassin, doesn't even really run anything in the constructor. No big deal. Tank. Nothing. Sniper. Oh, here we go. We got a sneak where we say new aggregation sneak, and then distance shot, snipe distance, new aggregation distance shot. So at this point, it only seems like really one of them has anything full in there. Okay, so now we're going to go into the aggregation, distance shot, and sneak. Let's go take a look. Add an attribute called sneaking. And so what does this mean? Well, this means I'm going to put this in my variables over here. So it's going to add to this list. And actually, let's go back and just take a look at it quickly. So variables, attributes, add, sneaking. Now, why do we want to know it? Because we probably want to put it into the list box, right? Now, let's go back here, and we'll see, as you can see, is a distance shot. So if we click on distance shot, we're just adding that to our piece, right? And now let's run it. We're going to run it for just that sniper. So I'm going to click on sniper, and it gives me a sniper person. And then we're going to do a create, and you can see the sneaking and the distance shot show up. So we can choose that sniper. Okay, now let's go back to Form 1 and see what's happening. Because if you look here, you know, if I hit the tank, I get a big tank. If I hit the assassin, I get an assassin. If I hit the sniper, I hit the sniper. What's actually causing that? Well, remember, before we were doing this all through the button, but now we're not. So if I click Form 1 Design and I click on Tank, you'll see that, and actually let me go into the Events section. You'll see that when whenever it's changed, checked changed, which is very convenient, only one of these is available. It's going to go into Tank Rad check changed. And it's going to grab a picture box item, prot images list. Where is this prot list? Let's take a look. This prot list is actually created right down here. So I grabbed from our toolbox an image list and just grabbed it and dropped it down there. Once you have that list there, then you can just order those in a specific number. So if I go back to this design list and if I click on it, then there's this choose image section, and you can see there's a 0, 1, and a 2, and we can just fill this up with as many as we want. Okay, so that's the kind of cool part. So now we know how the radio buttons work. That not necessarily in terms of classes, but in terms of usage. Then we can go ahead and grab from an image list one of those items. Now let's get back to doing aggregation. So right now, when I hit start, if I hit tank, nothing shows up. So what we can do here, and remember sniper here, we just said new snipers, public sniper is going to grab sneak and a distance shot. Well, who else can use the snipe sneak? Well, and the distance up. Well, maybe we can use the sneak for the assassin, right? So in here, what we'd like to do then is in the assassin, oops, actually, you know what? I'm going to grab that whole thing. And put it, instead of saying snipe sneak, I am going to put in assassin sneak. And it's going to grab an assassin piece. But I don't want a distance shot because they don't do distance shot. They might do something else. Like, say, a backstab. So let's take a look at our backstab. Sure, why not? Go ahead and do backstab, assassin, backstab, new dot sneak. Now we have to fill that backstab up because just like sneak had something, we have to do this. So variables add backstab. Oops, and don't remember to call this backstab since this is the constructor. So now when we run it, oops, I got to put assassin there. And yes, backstab here. So now when we run it, well, before we could create a sniper with a sneaking and distance shot. Now we can create assassin with a sneaking and a backstab. I suppose we should put a capital on there to make it look a little more uniform. But now let's investigate what we're doing here. So whenever I created a sniper, I didn't extend anything. So you don't see a colon here, you don't see a colon here. You're not using polymorphism, you're not using inheritance. What you are doing, though, is creating an object within the creation of an object. So as I'm creating a sniper, I also have to create this snipe sneak. I also have to create this snipe distance. And so they have their own instances. So the sniper has two lingering, and I use that both positive and negative, two lingering classes that are associated with it. The reason why they're lingering is that, as you might have guessed, objects take up a lot of space. So when you're linking these guys together, an object calling another object, there is that danger of having all these kind of dangling objects, which will create a lot of memory space. But in this case, they're relatively small objects, and we're going to just bring that sneak in here, and that sneak is just running of variables. Same for the backstab and the same for the distance shot. Now, could we do the same thing with the tank? Sure. What's the tank going to ask for? Well, the tank is probably going to not have a distance shot, probably not have a backstab. They might have like their own extra health, or they might have their own melee or something like that. Which, guess what? The assassin might share that melee with them, so we might actually put a melee in here that we can store with the tank and the assassin. And then all of a sudden, so now we're just taking bits and pieces of whatever we want with us. And we can even do other things. You can do lock picking, all those fun things that you can do in a game, you can just add as classes, and again, pick and choose which ones you want to go with, let's call it the super class that is kind of controlling them. But that's basically, if you look in a nutshell, then what is aggregation? It's a class that calls classes. And the same thing for composition. It's going to be a class that calls classes to build something where those classes have a specific place inside, again, the class that's calling them. Little difficult, but the more you play with this, the more you can do with it, and the more fun you can do with it. I would suggest going and trying something like this and then doing it with arrays, so you can kind of get all these unique assassins and all these unique snipers and see what you think of. And we haven't really filled anything in yet other than giving them a set of attributes. We haven't actually put numbers that are associated with those attributes. Well, actually, let's do a shared one. They both might have that. I think they both shared sneak, right? So one could be of a certain decibel volume, like say 20 decibels could be the assassin, and the sniper has the 30 decibel number associated with their sneak abilities, so that they wouldn't necessarily have to have, even though they have that ability, they could have different, well, in real life we'd call it expertise, but in the programming world we call it associated values. Again, this opens up a whole wide world. Probably right now your head's spinning a little bit. That's pretty natural, but just do it. Just try it, play with it, and go with it. See what you can do. It feels like there's almost no limit.